very much looking down the barrel of regulation or control in some way of glyphosate use on farm that is driven by societal expectations rather than the evidence or the science behind whether glyphosate is safe or not, because there is no question that the overwhelming evidence is that the risk of using glyphosate in an appropriate manner is nil in terms of its capacity as a carcinogen. One of the objectives of the Australian Farm Institute is to promote evidence-based policy to policymakers. We've been doing a lot of thinking recently about how do you promote information now? How do you put it forward in a way that will have cut through, that will compete with those who potentially have different ideas about agriculture, that are very good at using very emotive, very passionate arguments that don't necessarily have a lot of evidence-based sort of, facts as part of that. We certainly are not advocating or have no desire to move away from good evidence-based policy. We need to defend everything that we do, but we need to not assume that evidence on its own is enough.
Presumably, though, the answer for us in agriculture is not to dismiss community concerns.
Social licence is a two-way street. We're absolutely not trying to suggest that it isn't. We need the trust of our consumers to buy our goods. That's really important. We need the trust of society to give us the licence to do what we do. It's about having the conversation that is develops workable, practical outcomes as a result of that interaction with consumers. And so agriculture absolutely needs to participate in that and needs to put forward their evidence and their position about how to have a responsible agriculture that meets society's demands.
Is there hope of success in that endeavour? I mean, in the West it does seem that the community at large is quite removed from the realities of agricultural production.
I think there's absolutely hope of success, because I guess I disagree a little bit that the West is disengaged with how food is produced. I think they're becoming more and more engaged with how food is produced, and we being agriculture, needs to make sure that our story is getting in there in terms of that engagement, so that what they understand as being legitimate, viable food production systems is reflecting reality. So they're engaged with, as you say, an idealistic way of food production. Agriculture needs to understand how they can put the messages forward that cut through, that make sure that realistic methods of food production are in that conversation.
Richard Heath, thanks for joining us on The Anvil.
Thanks, Darryl.